I've made a ton of Necron lists over the years, but which one is my favourite? I answer this and more in this month's Q&A. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to keep up to date with all things Necrons, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Right, welcome to this special between Christmas and New Year Necron Q&A. I hope everyone has had a fantastic Christmas, and I hope you got a lot of Necron toys. Now, before we get on with the questions from my previous Q&A that you gave me, I have a question for you. Okay, so today I'm using a new lighting setup. I have a brand new large LCD panel which was donated to the channel by Nick from Old Average Brit Gaming. So massive thank you to Nick. There's a link to Nick's channel in the description below. Great YouTube channel with lots of fantastic content on it. Now, I've got this big light. I'm directing it off of the ceiling to give me a nice soft light in the room. I've got my normal daylight bulb on as well, and I've made some camera adjustments, in particular to the white balance. So basically what I'm saying is, can you see a difference? Does it look better? Let me know in the comments box below. I'd also love to know if you got some Necron toys for Christmas. What did you get? Let me know in the comments below, and whilst you're there, don't forget to ask me a Necron question for next month's Q&A. Okay, so on to the questions that you asked me last month, and I think I've got some tough questions here to answer, so this should be interesting. Let's get on with the first one, and the first one is from Peter Smith, and he says, Necrons seem a tale of two codexes. This is between a ranged shooty army supported by flyers, fast attack and heavy support, but we have a ton of units like flayed ones, lich guard, monoliths and tesseract vault. How would you like to see these units be brought into line with 8th edition, taking not only your own wants but also that of a prospective opponent? So a very interesting question. So yeah, well, flayed ones have just come down in points, which I think almost solves their issue at 13 points a model. I think their stats is probably just about right. It would be better if they had a special rule which helps them get into the assault when they deep strike, maybe 3d6 or +1 to the assault roll or something. But yeah, flayed ones I think are just about right really now. Lich Guard, I don't really play Lich Guard or Lich Guard, however you want to pronounce it, but I don't really play them much. From what I can tell, people do play them successfully. I don't really know if they again need too much. If you play Lich Guard, as I said, I don't really play them, but if you play them, what changes would you make to them? Let me know. Monoliths, well, bar a massive points reduction for the current rules, in terms of rules to bring them up to 8th edition, I think just maybe going back to how they used to work a little bit more, where you could teleport your units through the monolith a little bit easier, maybe a re-roll on the RP like they used to. They used to have some cool, fun rules. Maybe in terms of 8th edition rules, it would be pretty cool if the monolith's big crystal maybe gave us an anti-psychic, like aurora around our monolith that just like reduced psychic powers within X amount of inches of the monolith. Something like that would be pretty cool. And obviously the monolith's survivability is the biggest issue. I wouldn't necessarily give it quantum shielding, because I think maybe it would be too powerful with that amount of wounds that it has, but it needs something. I mean, straight off I think it needs a 2+ save. The monolith was armor 14 all round, like a land raider, and the land raider's got a 2+ save, so straight up it should have a 2+ save I think. And I don't know, maybe a reduction of damage somehow, like a special living metal, not quantum shielding, but something that at least reduced the damage down. So it's like -1 to damage or -2 to damage or something like that, rather than totally ignoring the damage. So yeah, Monolith, the Tesseract Vault. Well, I've been playing the Vault quite a lot. There's not too much wrong with the Vault really, except I would reduce it in points slightly, but not by too much. I think it needs to come down slightly, and I think that's probably about it really with the Vault. Yeah, it's a great question, very interesting. Okay, the next question is from Soul Survivor, and he says, so I am somewhat conflicted. If I purchased a model from Forge World and I'm not happy with the quality, is it morally wrong to 3D print the same model in a more resilient material? Okay, well, this is an interesting question as well. I do have my coffee because this video is going to be quite a relaxed video, not too much editing. So if you purchased a Forge World model and you weren't happy with the quality, well, I think first of all you should just contact Forge World, because the Forge World customer service, from what I know of, is excellent, and if you have any problems at all they will sort it out. And they won't generally even ask you to return the faulty product. In terms of quality, I mean, in my experience, I haven't had any issues with Forge World quality. It's always been very good. And is it morally wrong to 3D print the same model in a more resilient material? So I assume that 3D printed stuff, which I don't have too much experience with, is more resilient than Forge World resin. Otherwise, you wouldn't say it. Is it morally wrong? Well, I think only you can decide whether you would be willing to do that or if it's morally wrong. From my personal point of view, it's a bit hard because I don't have a 3D printer and I've never done 3D printing. I think if it's maybe just for friendly games in your house with your buddies, then maybe why not? But obviously anything out of that, you're not going to be able to sort of take that model into a Games Workshop store or a tournament or an event or a painting competition. Morally wrong? Well, I think only you can decide from what's inside you whether it's right or wrong. Yeah. Okay, thanks for the question. Next question is from Basic Miniature Painting, from Justin. Awesome channel, check him out. There is links to everyone's channel in the description below, so yeah, check them all out. Nick says, Nick, I am waiting to get a bonus from work and I'll be buying my first Necron Army. So, a question, what do I buy for a first ever Necron Army? That is another great question. Okay, so it depends what you want from the army, because are you buying it to play and win, or are you buying it because you like Necrons and you enjoy the models and you want a very cool army, and maybe a flexible army? So there's different ways of looking at this. Ultimately, I think probably the Outrider box set is maybe the better choice. The Outrider box set has some good units in it. You've got the Cryptek, the Doomsday Ark, you've got the Wraiths and also the Tomb Blades. So some very usable units on the table. It's probably a good starting point. But my real recommendation is buy the units that you like the look of, that you'll enjoy painting and you'll enjoy playing on the table. But like I said, it really does depend on what you want from the army. The Start Collecting box set is also a good set, although you do have warriors in there which possibly aren't quite as good at the moment on the table. So yeah, I'd probably look at the Immortals for your troops choice. And whilst I would automatically say Tesla for your guns, with how Space Marines are at the moment, and I've had an experience of playing Imperial Fist Space Marines, I'm starting to think that maybe there's a place for for Gauss on our Immortals now. I am going to be looking at switching up maybe one of my units to Gauss. I think Tesla is still very, very good, but having some AP on the table is very useful when there's a lot of Marines around. But yeah, either way, I still don't think that Warriors are the troops' choice to go for. But yeah, ultimately I think just buy the units that you like the look of, but I would recommend the Outrider Detachment box set as, you know, a decent starting place. So, great question. Thank you, Justin. Right, so the next one is from Yellowman 1945, and he says, what do you want to see the Necrons get in Psychic Awakening? Do you think Games Workshop will ever reveal the Void Dragon on Mars, or will the Silent King return to speed up the Awakening? What are your thoughts on the new chapter of the 41st Millennium? Okay, yes. Units which we all are longing to see. The Void Dragon, I already have a converted model converted into the Void Dragon. I'd love to see that return. And yeah, of course, the Silent King, who wouldn't want that back? And I think ideally we would see the Silent King coming back as a Necron version of a Primarch. That would be pretty cool. And yeah, I think it could happen. I think when GW say, right, it's now time to sit down and sort out Necrons, and they will do that one day, I do foresee a new Warrior kit without the green rods in, and I foresee Warriors getting a lot better. And I do foresee a new Catan model, a big Catan model, whether it will be the Void Dragon or something else, someone else, I don't know. Sounded like the Green Arrow there, didn't it? Someone else. Something else. And yeah, the Silent King would be absolutely awesome. And if GW really wants Necrons to be flavour of the month, then I think the Silent King release would do that, definitely. What do I want to see in Psychic Awakening? Well, I've already said I don't think we're going to get too much. I think we might get a few stratagems, possibly, that might possibly give bonuses to things like Gloom Prisms. So maybe a stratagem where the Gloom Prism range is extended for a turn, something like that. I honestly can't see us getting too much. I hope we do, and I'd love to see, say, Pariahs come back, or rules for Lich Guard that make them into Pariahs with the anti-psychic abilities. Do I think it will happen? Honestly, no, I don't. And yeah, I honestly still don't think we're going to get too much. But I would love to be wrong. I was wrong with the chapter approved, which was great, and I'm hoping I'm going to be wrong with Psychic Awakening. I believe that the Necron stuff is going to be in book 5. So obviously I'll be covering all the Necron Psychic Awakening stuff here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. Okay, the next question is from Alexander Arevalo. Arevalo? Yeah. Regarding your Titan question, which I had from the previous episode, would you consider Games Workshop or Forge World add something like the Megalith? I forgot where I heard about this. Yes, the Megalith. I only know about the Megalith because of something I found on eBay. It was a converted monolith. It was like an extra tall monolith. They basically put, I think, plastic card in between the monolith base and the top and made it really tall, and it was classed as the Megalith, which I don't know whether it was one of those. I don't know if you remember, in the old days the chapter approved used to have custom rules in there where you could custom like super heavy units. And at the time I was playing Tyranids, and I made some custom super heavy Tyranid creatures. We actually had a formula how to work out the points depending on which weapon skill you had, ballistic skill and save and toughness, etc. And I bought a big dinosaur model with wings, and I built my own Forge Weld super heavy creature from chapter approved. Now I don't know whether the Megalith was part and parcel of that sort of era or not. If you know, let me know in the comments box below, because I'd love to find out. I did try to bid on that custom monolith, but I didn't win it. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and it would be pretty cool if Games Workshop or Forge World, it's probably going to be Forge World, would release the Megalith. But first up, they need to sort out the monolith rules, because they are shocking at the moment. Right, okay, great question. So next up is from Pawel Niksa, and Pawel Niksa says, it seems that Games Workshop extremely overestimates Space Marines. Sometimes it appears that 40,000 becomes 30,000. Space Marines here, Space Marines there, they get new models, consistently increasing powers, points reductions, weapons, tons of special rules. From update to update they become stronger and stronger. By now, to my mind, they have already become way overpowered. But what about others? What about us, orcs, Tyranids? Now of course I know that's pure marketing, Space Marines are the best selling army and so on, but everything has its limits. Do you think this situation is okay? Okay, well, that is spot on with your views. I mean, as I said, I've recently played against Nick and his Imperial Fist. He did take an army to smash me, and he smashed me. And if it wasn't for good terrain, when Nick had his first turn, because he went first, if it wasn't for good terrain, I would have lost my whole army pretty much, I think, on turn 1. And the terrain saved me. But the amount of shots, ignoring covers, +1 to toughness, is just normal strength 4 bolts gun things were doing an awesome amount of damage. Marines, yeah, are definitely in a powerful place at the moment. I don't think it's always been the case, because there has been stages where Space Marines have not been very good, and they've had a lot of issues, and obviously GW have now looked after them, and that's all down to obviously where they're trying to get Primaris Space Marines, the standard, I don't know why I keep doing this, it's so annoying. The standard Space Marine armies now, they're obviously trying to phase out mini Marines, and that's what it's all about. Do I think it's okay? Well, obviously I don't play Space Marines, so I'm probably going to say no, but it happens, it's always happened, and they won't be the most powerful army forever. You know, things will change and flip around, and yeah, like I said, it's not always the case that Space Marines get all of the love. So, you know, we've had it with other armies. I mean, Tau is still very good from what I hear and have seen. Necrons, I mean, Necrons, believe it or not, they were at one point one of the most powerful armies that we had. Back when I first started, Necrons were like a loathed army with their Gauls weapons, easily taking out tanks, even the strength 4 warrior Gauls weapon doing awesome damage on tanks, and they were a force to be reckoned with. So we have had that heyday as such, and it can happen again. It's just the way it is, really, and I think you just have to cope with what it is and just try to have fun. I mean, I got smashed playing Nick with the Imperial Fist. I'll link you up to the battle report in the description below if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I got smashed by that, but I played the mission and I did quite well. I mean, at the end of turn 2, I was actually in the lead in terms of points, but I just didn't have enough army left. Now, it was pre-chapter approved, but yeah, I just didn't have enough units left, and what am I going to say? Oh yeah, but even though that all happened, I had just as much fun playing that game as a game that I would have done where I would have won or smashed Nick's army. You know, I had just as much fun. It was just about two people getting together, you know, having a good chat, playing our painted armies on a nice board, rolling dice, some nice snacks in the kitchen, constant supply of tea and coffee, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So for me, it's not you know, it's not all about winning. So yeah, let them have their heyday, and you know, it will change. It will change. Thank you, Pawel, for the question. Next is from Michael Weidner, and Michael says, which Catan have you had the most success with overall through the years and editions? Necrons. Okay, the most success with, obviously the Nightbringer at one point was absolutely awesome. You even had to have permission to play him, and that was again when I first started. Most games were 1500 points there, and you had to play at least 1500 points, and you had to have permission to play him. I think it was 365 points back then. I don't remember playing him too much, only on an occasional game, because he was so powerful, and also Necrons were expensive back then. I mean, expensive now, but back then a warrior was 18 points, and you had to have 2 units of 10 before you even started. So to build an army, it was 360 points for 2 squads of 10 warriors, and then the Lord was, I think, 210 points with his war sign, Veil of Darkness. That was a big chunk of your points in a 1500 point game. You didn't really have too many points left over, so I didn't really play him too much. In recent times, it's got to be the Deceiver. Way back when the Black Codex, as I call it, the 3rd edition Codex, it was 10 years old, and by the end of that it was very hard to win with Necrons. The best I was doing was drawing, and one of the key units to help me draw was the Deceiver with the redeployment. Especially with we only had 3 missions back then. It was 2 objectives, 1 in each deployment zone, and I think it was a random amount of objectives, and then it was kill points. And the Deceiver was very useful in having fixed plans for your lists. It's much more difficult with 8th edition because of the vast amount of missions that are available, and also how you play the missions, whether it's ITC or ETC or ATC, or you know, there's lots of different ways to play the game now. It's not just a fixed 3 missions that you can really plan for, which is very good, but also it makes it more difficult to obviously plan for your army. But I'm going to say the Deceiver I've had the most success with, not necessarily what he kills, but just that redeployment function, just very, very useful. So yeah, excellent question, thank you. Next question is from Methos, from Frost and Fists, and he says, oh, you've made a ton of Necron lists over the years with different builds and themes. Which one has been your favourite, and why? You are correct, I've had quite a few different themed lists and list ideas. My favourite one, I think my favourite one, and you might be surprised, you'll probably think I'm going to say the Flayed Ones, which is one of my favourite lists, but I think my most favourite list is my Super Flanks list, which is quite hard to do in 8th edition because of the way the rules are, but the Super Flanks was built around what Necrons do best, and that's surviving. Where you could have, you started off with a big squad of warriors backed up by 2 ghost arcs, and then we had characters in there with certain rules. I think we had, I can't remember, it's been a long time, but I think we had Lightning Strike on a Cryptek, Mind Shackle Scarabs on the Overlord. Basically, if you assaulted the unit, then you had a lot to deal with, and if you tried to shoot the unit, it was very difficult to kill the whole unit. They had a 4+ reanimation protocol back then, and yeah, then that was all just backed up by, had a flyer in there, where Doomscythe with some Immortals in that flew around the board, jumping out and shooting. And then we had some, I think it was Wraiths in there. I can't remember the rest of the list now. I think I had 2 Annihilation Barges, because Annihilation Barges were really good back then. And it was just built around survivability. And I think just the fact that that list sort of suited Necrons and how Necrons really should be, their play style, or at least their fluff. That's probably my favourite list. I'm going to say the Necron Super Flanks was my favourite list. I have made a video on that list. It's very old. It's, I think, 6th edition. But just in case you're interested, I'll link you up to that video just there. Check it out if you're interested. Thank you, Methos. Awesome question. Right, the next question is from Dave Reid, and Dave Reid says, would you like to get some anti-tank? Because every time I play at 1000 points game, I seem to get overwhelmed by tank fire and my Annihilation Barge keeps getting killed turn 2. Would it be worth getting one Doomsday Ark to help it? At 1000 points, I have played 1000 points game, and I played more fast attack choices. So I had Wraiths, a big squad of Wraiths, some Tomb Blades, and a big squad of Destroyers, and then I think I had a Cryptek with a Cloak, and 1 unit of Immortals off memory, and that was about 1000 points. And it was built around speed, survivability, and a reasonable amount of Tesla fire, and obviously Gauss fire. So I had a good amount in there. The Gauss, Gauss on the Destroyers, you know, could deal with heavy infantry and some tanks with the D3 damage, and not ideal for tanks, but you know, they can do the job. The Wraiths, you had the nice survivability and assault element, and then you had the Tomb Blades with the speeds and the Tesla for help take out hordes. And then some troops to sit on objectives if needed. So that's what my list looked like. Would I try to get a Doomsday Ark? I don't think I would, because the Doomsday Ark is quite random. I mean, you could play with a Doomsday Ark, and it's not overly costed, so I think you could easily get a Doomsday Ark in there. And if you're playing Annihilation Barge, it might be nice to have extra quantum shielding in there. If you wanted to go tank heavy, you could potentially have 2 Annihilation Barges and a Doomsday Ark, and get quite a bit of quantum shielding in there, to maybe try to make it more difficult for your opponent to work out which one to shoot at. But if you're experiencing your Annihilation Barge going down very quickly, then maybe it's time to drop it and maybe look at other units. Yeah, that's probably going to be my advice, really. I would go for a list without any tanks in there at all, personally. At 1000 points, yeah. Okay, so next question is from Mystical Explorer 8, and I think this is our first question from them, so thank you for that. My Necrons always struggle against Deathwatch and Astra Militarum Soup. What advice do you have facing this almost unbeatable combo? Okay, this might actually be quite hard for me to answer, because I've only played Deathwatch once, and I've not really played Astra Militarum in 8th edition, only in 7th. So I have been told that, from what I've seen, I really don't know too much about Deathwatch, but what I've seen of Astra Militarum Soup, then yeah, they have been quite difficult to beat for Necrons, because they have the range of guns and we don't. They have the volume of bodies and we don't. So I can certainly understand why you're having issues. My automatic go-to when I'm having issues with an army, beating an army, is Wraiths. Unless your opponent has something which is going to take that invulnerable save away, Wraiths are an awesome choice. They're fast, they're durable, they can do reasonably in assault, especially in the Novok dynasty. They can fall back and also reassault. They move through buildings. They just an all-round great unit against armies which you're dying to with your normal infantry. Okay, with the volume of shots, you can still roll 1s and 2s and the wraiths can go down. But for me, if I'm struggling, my wraiths come out because I think they are the most durable unit. They're the unit which almost every army has trouble taking out, or at least they have to put a lot of firepower and effort into the wraiths. So I'd start off with at least 2 units of 6 wraiths against playing these units, this army. That would be my starting block. I'd even be tempted to go for 3 units of 6, but starting block, 2 units of 6 wraiths and some scarab swarms as well. Get those scarabs in there and just charge that lot forward, and try to give your opponent something to think about and distract, whilst in the meantime have your troops, your immortals, at the back just taking objectives. But for me, yeah, wraiths is going to be your answer. Do you agree? Let me know. Let his name, let's have a look, Mystical Explorer 8, let him know in the comments box below. Do you play against those armies? And what's your advice? Because it may be totally different for me, because as I said, I haven't really played against them. So yeah, let's expand our Necron knowledge and help each other. Right, the next question is from Spekd. And Spekd says, what is the threat that the Necrons run away from when they left the galaxy? Also, do you think they would ever release the version with the death mask? Spekd, the fluff question. What is the threat that the Necrons run away from when they left the galaxy? You're asking me that? You're just trying to embarrass me on camera, aren't you, Spekd? Hey? Hey? Will they ever release a version of the death mask? Do you think we'll ever release the version with the death mask? I'm sorry, mate, I have no idea what that is either. The death mask. Okay, so embarrassingly, I'm just going to skip your questions, I'm afraid, Spekd. Apologies for that. Yeah. Okay, next question is from 6543 Dan. And he says, what's your favourite part of the Necron lore? Oh, another lore question. Really testing me, aren't you guys? When are you going to do your next unit review? Okay, blah blah. I'm going to answer those in a minute. So yes, my favourite part of Necron lore, I'm not into the lore. My favourite part, I don't really have a favourite part of the lore. The lore just doesn't really do anything for me. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are into Necrons because of the lore, and I'm just not a fluff bunny whatsoever. You know, I see Necrons, I just see Terminator. You know, I see Arnold Schwarzenegger, a sea of Terminators. That's what I see. However, he got some more questions. So he says, when are you going to do your next unit review or comparison video? Very soon, my friend, almost straight into the new year. I was waiting for Chapter Approved to come out, and I'm ready to go. I've got 2 videos planned already, which should be hopefully fun and interesting. So yeah, definitely they're coming up soon. He also says, would you do an apocalypse battle report with your Necrons or one of your other armies? The answer is going to be yes. In actual fact, I'm hoping to get a few YouTubers together in the summer and get a few boards together in my back garden and do a good versus evil apocalyptic game. I think that would be a lot of fun. So yes, that hopefully will happen. So yeah, hopefully you're looking forward to that, because I know I am. Right, the next question is from Richard from CM Wargames, Capitan Morgan, and he says, do you think Necrons could do with a new unit that is Swarm, but can not only damage a vehicle and Titan, but say on a 5+ causes one of its weapons to malfunction on that turn, or shields or engines, causing it to be immobile, or have half movements, so have a choice of things that can be picked or rolled for? I like the concept. I don't think we need a new unit. I think this could just be given to Scarab Swarms. I mean, Scarab Swarms in the past had something like this, where they just took away your armour and made your armour less. So I think they could easily give something like this to Scarabs. Do I think that we should have it? I think it might complicate the game a bit more, but it would be good to see Scarabs doing better. Possibly Scarabs, rather than auto wounding everything on a 5+, maybe have like a special rule that if you're up against something with X amount of wounds, I don't know, say 20 wounds, they actually wound on a 4 rather than a 5, so they can wound it easier. Maybe. Yeah, great question. It's a great concept. I do like the idea of sort of weapon destroyed and stuff, but I don't think it necessarily suits 8th edition now. Okay, next question is from Thomas Terry. He says, what do you think it would take to make Praetorians viable, combat aside, from allowing them to receive dynasty bonuses? What do you think will make them more viable in combat, aside from allowing them to receive dynastic bonuses? Okay, so yeah, Praetorians. So they've got two issues really, and that's survivability, because of that no dynasty code. I think ideally I'd like to see Praetorians with a 5+ invulnerable save. I think that might help them. And then of course the amount of damage that they do, the amount of damage, just 1 damage, is just not going to cut it. It needs to be at least 2 damage on their weapons. And I think give them at least the buffs on their weapons. I think 2 damage on their weapons would really help them. And I think potentially if they had damage 2, you might see them on the table a little bit more. Personally, I like the idea of the 5+ save, just to help them get to where they need to be. And yeah, I think potentially that's all they really need. They just need their weapons to be a bit better. What do you think? Let me know in the comments box below. Yeah, I'll be very interested to hear that. Next is from David Grzesek. David Grzesek. That is probably totally wrong, but there you go. He says, no, he doesn't even say that. He says, I guess a question for your next Q&A would be, barring any major overhauls, what do you think Games Workshop could do stat-wise to make Flayed Ones more viable? Okay, so I think Flayed Ones, of course this question came out before Chapter Approved. Chapter Approved has reduced the Flayed Ones down to 13 points. They are definitely more viable now. And as I said previously, I think something just to help them get into the assault a little bit more reliable after they deep strike would also be very useful. But yeah, I think Flayed Ones are now in a pretty good place. I'm going to be, well, I've already done it, made a list around 60 Flayed Ones, so I'm hoping to play that at some point soon. Next question is from Spekd. I've got another question from Spekd. Hopefully I'll be able to answer this one. He says, Do you think the Necron concept being so close to the Terminator movies have restricted the scope of newer designs? Okay, no, I don't think they've restricted the scope of newer designs, because I think Games Workshop have already come out of that Terminator, doing it again, Terminator look, really, with all, they've gone more Egyptian looking, haven't they, with their characters and things, and the Doomsday arc and Ghost arc is not very Terminator-esque. Even the new Tomb Blades aren't very Terminator-esque. The old Destroyers were, arguably then the new Destroyers were. I don't think really it's restricting them at all in their designs. Good question though. I'm glad to see that you also think that they're close to Terminators, because let's face it, that's what they are. Okay, next question is from Vladimir Zhelamsky. He says, do you think we need dynastic codes for more dynasties, like Maynarch, Folkt, maybe others, and maybe others? And what do you wish them to be like? I don't know that we need more dynastic codes. We've got 5. I suppose more would be okay. I don't have anything against it, but I'm old school and we never had dynastic codes previously, and this is all quite new, and obviously every faction's getting all these different sects and clans and codes and stuff. Do we need more? I don't know that we need more. We've got 5 and I think they're all playable. Some more playable than others, but I think they've done reasonably well. Obviously there is the Forge World one, the Maynarch, whatever they're called. Yeah, Maynarch, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I mean it could get a little bit silly really if they do too many. So I think if each book has a similar amount, sort of 5 or 6 different factions within their codex, is probably enough really, to be fair. Yeah, that's what I think anyway. What do you think? Let me know in the comments box below, and if you have a question for me for next month's Q&A, then also let me have a question in the comments box below. And if you watch out for my next video, which will be up on Thursday, I've got a non-Necron Q&A, so watch out for that. Beam me up!